Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Jim and Sam Town Square. I'm Scott King. Jim and Sam fans know me from the Forbes articles, and I'm joined, as always, by multi-Emmy Award-winning TV producer Chris Cangilla. This episode, we're recapping week 4 of September 2023. And Chris, we always start by saying, hey, it's been a good week, but I think maybe you're not leaning that way this week. Is that fair?
It is fair, and don't get me wrong. I'm going to tune in every day that they're on, and I'm going to listen the whole way through like I do always. But yeah, this week I didn't feel was a very good week. I have to disagree with it being one because, it just didn't have the things that we need for me to hold my interest all the way through. I would just find myself daydreaming during interviews, during other parts of it when Jimmy's not there, which we'll talk about. But yeah, it wasn't a great week. That's all. I love them, but it wasn't a great week.
We'll get to it. What I think it is kind of the guests. I think when you have new guests, it can be hit or miss. But as you'll agree, there's always stuff you love in every episode, and for me, it's better to listen to that than anything else that you can, regardless. Absolutely. So let's start off the top. Big news, obviously, with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, but did it make a certain someone jealous, you think, by how they were talking about it?
Yeah, I don't think Troy was quite a fan of the pairing, and then seeing it come to fruition during the game that we saw over the weekend. So much so that they adopted the Doug Bell voice for Troy when they were having him kind of, white knighting Taylor. He's not going to treat you like and doing it in Doug's voice was extremely funny. So yeah, what's your take on that?
Oh, that hey babe, he's not going to treat you right.
Exactly.
And that's not good Doug Bell either. But no, I think I think he wasn't thrilled about all the news. Everyone else is having so much fun with this. These two star-crossed lovers. Troy was not feeling that way, it seemed. And Doug Bell is a Hall of Fame white knight. So anytime you work Doug Bell in, I absolutely loved it. And the other thing they were breaking down with Kelce, maybe Troy maybe he's a little sour on, is that he may talk a certain way, may speak with what they called a black sense. But when they listened to the tape, it was like kind of there. It wasn't like a certain gentleman named Chris Klein. Yeah, Chris Klein from American Pie, who did that to DJ Who Kid, who was terrible. Do you think he had that kind of fake accent?
Yeah, I listened to the podcast he does with his brother, the Kelce Brothers podcast, which is called New Heights, and I hear in Travis's voice a cool guy. He kind of talks like a cool guy, so it's not that affected. It's just more of he's just kind of cool. So I don't see it, and kind of like Kelce, even though he plays for the Chiefs, which is a big rival for my stupid Broncos, which we'll talk about a little later.
Hard not to like those Chiefs.
Yeah.
Speaking of cool guys, as you were saying, I think that a certain somebody named Mike Montone has 100% planted their flag with a certain NFL quarterback. I mean, would you call him a Dak apologist at this point? Because he can never say the guy underperformed, or the other end is that he's a choke artist, which I mean he seems to be. So he can't seem to say negative about this particular player.
Yeah, I agree that he does defend him more than he needs to. But football. We both played football in high school and stuff, so we get it. There's points where Dak doesn't choke. He just doesn't perform as well. So there's a difference between choking, which I think is everything on the line, and you screw it up. You're getting paid to do this and you screw it up. That's what choking to me means. Yeah. So, he's an underperformer for sure. And I think maybe Montone would agree with that. But as a choke artist, he's going to defend him the whole time. So who knows? It's brutal. This season is brutal. My Broncos are 0-4. Your Bears are 0-4. They're facing each other this weekend. So I'm not a Russ Wilson apologist. He's bad now. And I got in trouble with my wife and probably other females in my household because I think he went bad when he married Sierra. So
it might do it.
I don't know. So you think a woman is affecting his play? Yeah, absolutely. I do. But I get in trouble for that.
It can happen. Speaking of football, somebody's getting more and more dedicated every week here as we move on. And that's who we call Sammy Footballs, but he has a new name now, doesn't he, Chris?
Yeah, I love it. Sammy Pigskin. I can't say it, but I love it. Sammy Pigskin. Yeah. Sammy Pigskin is in full effect. But we have our teams. You got the Bears, I got the Broncos. He doesn't have a team. Who should be his team?
You know what? He was seen naturally inclined early on to, I don't know if root for is the right terminology, but he was definitely checking out, and you could tell reading about the Giants. Like he knew a lot of players on the Giants.
He did.
Even though they're going to have a rough year too, it seems. So I don't.
He was also checking out, if you will, San Francisco's team because they have. Go ahead, Scott.
Cute boys.
Cute boys. So maybe he's checking out them as well. But yeah, he needs to pick a team and stick with it and follow them through. I love it.
I agree. And Sammy, whatever you all call him, Sammy Footballs, Sammy Pigskin, he was doing, along with Travis, something we're accustomed to where, it's kind of just working Jim up about something. I feel like Sam and Travis were not overly enthused about Usher doing the Super Bowl halftime show, but they were kind of pretending to be that way to work up Jim. And Jim was, of course, furious.
Of course. And I'm old like Jim. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't make or break the Super Bowl for me. I'm not going to tune in for it. But I do like seeing real performances. Usher's a good performer, but I want to see actual people sing, music being made, whatever genre it is. And I don't like the lip syncing like Jim does. Also hate that stuff. So yeah, I who cares? I don't.
Yeah. And being a little younger, I feel like Usher or Ursher, as he called, and Sam might like to call him,
Sure.
It's kind of the soundtrack to my high school and college. And still, I don't. This is a head scratcher because he was popular then, but he's not now. And I don't.
And will he perform? Will he do everything real there, or will he be doing backing tracks? Who knows?
Yeah,
right?
And maybe they're relying on the guests he could get. Like this is a good point. They were mentioning like maybe you do get a Justin Bieber or Ludacris or other people that perform songs with him. So
that'll be fun. We'll see. That'd be cool.
We'll see. Speaking of Sammy, this is a Sam heavy first half for us. I'm all about it.
Sure.
I am never, as much as I feel like we can do multiple shows about Little Jimmy and Little Jimmy's stories. I love when there's a little Sammy sprinkled in. I mean, we were hearing about this is with Matteo Lane, I believe. We're hearing about some youth court, and then we saw something that landed him on Nickelodeon as a child. What was that, Chris?
Well, his ankle coin flip thing that he got on Nickelodeon as a kid. I never went back and watched the thing. I'm not sure if you did when he did it. Originally went back and saw that video. Yeah. But to see him do it, at 40 now, right? Yep. It was pretty impressive. I'm like, that's crazy. It's a little disgusting. And, I was like, what is that?
Like
bone clicking.
Yeah.
But, it was cool to see it in person, not in person, but you know what I mean? See it at this level at our ages now. So, yeah, good for Sammy.
In action. Yeah, I think that there's always those weird double jointed kids, like when you were in school and it's kind of like, oh, you can do that. And it's like, but he got on Nickelodeon. And look, these Nickelodeon shows, they were the bomb when I was little, when I was around that age, just about a couple years younger than Sam. So that was like probably getting to be on that show was insane. And I thought I did watch it. I remember watching it before, but I thought it was more like he would like swing his leg and hit it. I wasn't ready for that like freak double jointed thing. So
yeah.
Gross.
I'm glad he had the right kind of socks on though when he did it in the studio, making sure they didn't have some socks on that would be controversial.
Make a political statement.
Exactly. But yeah, Sammy did great. And it was cool that he was sharing all that stuff this week.
It was great. And, we do like to break down the guests more later on, but having Matteo back, it's been a while. I think they're saying it's been a couple of years, at least since it
seems like it. Yeah.
And he's always has such memorable appearances on there when he serenaded Sam is still talked about regularly. They teased him Sam for that while he was in, but they got to talking about something, and it's a shame because I think it's just one of those like throwaway lines or ideas. But Matteo was bringing up the times that Jim, sometimes assisted by Patrice, would totally bomb a movie for somebody, just ruin it for someone. Somebody loves a movie, they'll say, oh, actually this stinks and this stinks and this stinks. And they said, what if Jim and Matteo just did a podcast where they run films? That would be amazing. That's a great hook. What do you think?
I would be a subscriber. I would listen every week. That would be great because first of all, I just really like Matteo. I can't say his name. I cannot speak this morning. I apologize. But I really like him. He is, it is a little early for us. He's just cool. He's cool. He's so talented. But yeah, I might have that love that Sam has for him. Who knows? But he has this other perspective of these movies, from the art part of it, and Jim has it from just watching a ton of stuff and has great takes on it. So pairing those guys together to ruin movies would be perfect. And Jim has done it with Independence Day, like you said. I'm hitting the mic like Sam too. Independence Day, and they did it with Baby Driver. So of course it would be fantastic.
And he did turn Patrice on Face Off. That's a great YouTube to go back.
That's right. That's right.
But no, I agree with Matteo. He is so talented. It sounds like he's doing very well. He's doing like big theaters now, I feel like. So I don't want to say he needs new management, but he should be super famous. He has an incredible singing voice. I'm sure he can act. His stand-up is great. He's great. He's a great interview. He does great impression. He's just a guy that's like, I guess he's like works out all the time too. He should be super famous.
Right, and they were talking about the his musicianship and knowing all that stuff, and they talked about watching conductors that do orchestras, and doing that, and they're like, "What does a conductor do? And they're just going through that, and it was so funny because I've been in bands, and I've also had to play in bigger orchestras doing other instruments and stuff, and you got to think of a conductor like a football coach at the pro level, right? Because all the orchestras are these top-notch musicians. He's just there to keep everything in time, right? Making sure everybody is hitting the things that they need to hit. Now, most of these musicians are always going to be in time because they're professionals, but there's always someone you need to just kind of look. If you get lost, you look up and okay, I'm here. It's just, so I think conductors do serve a purpose, but it is kind of fun. Like, what do they do up there? It's weird. So
I think Troy tried to explain it too. He says just keeping the tempo, and Matteo's like, no, they do nothing.
Exactly.
Jimmy is flying to Toronto, I believe. Thursday he was flying.
Yeah, he was up there. He flew Thursday, and he did a set on Thursday night, and is worried about coming home on Friday, right?
I believe so. I think he just in general is having issues anytime we heard about this trip all week. I feel like anytime he knows he's going to fly, after being a veteran comedian of about 30 years flying everywhere, he's scared of flying. He checks the weather. So the way he's compulsive and kind of takes things on and then maybe lets them go. Do we think this is going to stick around for a while? This airplane?
I don't know. I think as we all get a little bit older, we start worrying about things that we can't control as much, because when we're younger, we have all this energy and this strength, and we can control anything. Nothing's going to hurt us. Nothing's going to do that. But as you get older and you get weaker, you're like, oh, this could screw it up. And then it gets in your mind. Jim obviously lets things in and can't get rid of them easily and worries about them days out. So yeah, I think this will continue, but I'm for it because it makes for great radio.
It does. It always does. And he's telling like Sam Morril and other comedians what the weather's going to be like, and he's like scared.
Yeah, asking them, "Are you traveling next week? If you're traveling next week, make sure it's like he's crazy. He's a weather forecaster."
Everyone listening to Right Stone Cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
With Turbulence. There was I do like some gadget talk and some tech talk. There was some of that this week with Sam and Travis because they got new iPhones, the iPhone 15s. And I don't run out and get the new one right away. I usually wait a few years, not just money wise, but I feel like this is a point they made that was great, is that Apple, they are chiselers. They will hold back technology that they already have and just improve things like a tiny bit. Instead of just saying like, oh, we got the fastest charger you could have right now. I think that's why some people buy Samsung, or this is the best camera we could have right now. No, they're always, they're holding on to stuff for the next one. So
yeah, I'm an Apple guy.
You running by him right away or no?
No, I'm an Apple guy through and through. I just recently got a 14 that I'm actually coming to you right now on. So using that camera for our podcast, but yeah, it's great. And I was at 11 before, so I'm pretty much, skipping every other one or two of them before I go in there. So yeah, I don't need the 15. We'll see. It's when they come out with something that I really think is good. And this camera that I have now is so much better than I had before that it's definitely worth it. So I'm an Apple guy. I'll stick with Apple.
Same here. I am on my Apple computer right now. So we had Voss in studio. Again, this is another guest appearance we have to break down a little bit before we get the best guest, because we usually just have him on the phone for a quick phone call. And we're used to Jimmy saying that Voss and Bonnie should be doing XYZ. They should be bigger. And, I think you agree, like I do, that's 100% true. Just the relationship alone and how funny they can be together. I know you're not the biggest Voss fan, but it was Sam's suggestion that if they invested a little money into a home studio where they record the podcast, that would help a lot. Do you think it's, if the content is good, you're fine, or does the production kind of have to be on par these days too?
Well, speaking of what we do this very, on the cheap, right? We're doing it over Zoom and that kind of stuff. And we know the content is key. I mean, it's huge here. That's why people are tuning in by the fives.
Big in Ireland.
That's right. But yeah, so content is always going to be key. But yeah, you can just raise the level of production, having good microphones, having good cameras. I mean, my Mac camera, my laptop camera wasn't as good as my phone camera. So I moved it to my phone camera. You're always trying to do these upgrades. Yeah. And I think that Rich and Bonnie would benefit from that. 2 points I do have on this that I think Sam kind of went to, and I think it would be perfect. When they redo the Bonnie studio and the Voss studio, they need to have on Bonnie's side, the camera shooting Bonnie perfect, just sharp, kind of like what Sammy's studio looks like. And then when the camera turns around and shoots the Rich side, it should be his white trash, Venetian furniture, all that crap that he's getting on Amazon just look like crap because that he is white trash, right? So that side should be it. So the set should be divided right in half. The two shot, you can see both of them. And then each shot, the background shot, like my background shot is me, your background shot is you. They'd have looking good for Bonnie because we know she's pretty much the best in that relationship, and have it crappy for Voss because he is crappy. But I think that's great. And one of the funniest things they said during that thing is Jimmy was like, "What's that?" And they're looking at Voss's old set. "What's that behind you? What is that award?" And Sam, that's an Emmy. And Sam thought it was the funniest thing because he thought it was great that Jimmy couldn't recognize what an Emmy looked like. Maybe because he hasn't won one. He's like, it's great that you don't know what an Emmy looks like, Jim. That's perfect.
That did cause Jim to laugh at himself, which
absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of Jim, I forgot how. I think I just re-listened to this yesterday. I listened to some of the episodes twice, but Jim had a reaction to. We've heard about Jimmy Heights too. Jimmy being a little afraid of heights, but also like obsessed with places where you can go out really up high in buildings and look. So the Empire State video came up again. They watched it again, and Jimmy reacted. This seems like a thing he's had for a while, where he's like obsessed but also scared of heights.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and I'm not sure if they were able to share that video before with the rest of us, or even if the guys in the studio saw it. So I think Jimmy found that video. This is the video I was telling you about, where the woman's checking her purse out there, and there's no rails and stuff. I love that stuff. I mean, I don't want to watch it, but I love that he showed that because it's like the Russians that go and hang from the top things and do gymnastics way up high and all. I know Jimmy loves those videos too. So, yeah, that was kind of cool to watch. It's his. I think his reaction is right on par with mine. It's freaky and scary. How do you feel about those things?
I'm not great with heights. I don't need to. Like, I'm good on a carpet here in my basement right now. I don't need to be up high.
Yeah, you're not even on the first level. You went below to the basement level.
Yes, I can go the opposite way.
Exactly. Don't
need to be up high, but I do like some thrill rides. Something that was not a thrill ride was when Sam Morril and Mark Norman had Al Franken on their podcast, and right away I'm like, oh, he's not a good fit for that show. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm an SNL buff, especially early 90s. Like, that is my cast. I think they're better than the original cast because you have so much talent in there. You could say some of the early guys were the best, and that's fine, but you had so much talent at early 90s. And so I'm sure you want to get a writer or a performer from there, but he was a dud like I would expect him to be, and probably took himself too seriously. Do you feel for those guys, like having to make
absolutely? And of course, you've done so many celebrity interviews. I'm sure you've gotten a dud. I've had interviews where I'm like, I'm pulling teeth here, and they're not giving me anything. And Al Franken, when he was in the government, he really got screwed over by today's standards on what he did and what others are doing now. So he should just embrace that and be funny about it. But it's like he can't get past that. He was a funny, avant-garde, not avant-garde, but maybe just anti-establishment kind of comic in SNL. Then he went, the other way. Yeah. And now he won't go back to just say, yeah, I'm a comedian. Let's have a joke about it. And wouldn't give those guys on the podcast anything.
That might be it. And also, I don't think it helped when Mark Norman was speaking of the Phil Hartman tragedy, in joke form and making.
It was hilarious. I mean, C. Yep. And that's she was. She shot him
And he's
dead.
like,
I know
oh,
she had mental illness. We all
you
get
hear,
it.
I
But
love they played it. Yeah, I
yeah,
love they played it.
it
It's like,
was it
you're
was a
gonna edit
great
that
line
out,
by
right?
Mark.
You hear Al
Yeah,
Franken, you're
yep,
gonna
yeah,
edit that
sure.
out, right?
Yeah,
Really?
absolutely. No way.
Sure, Al. Don't worry about it. There's a great story Sarah Silverman tells in her book where they're at a writers meeting for SNL, and she thought she was sticking a sharpened pencil through his hair. She stabbed him right in the forehead, Al Franken. He was like, ah! He was like freaking out. It's a great story. She might
Love
tell
that.
that on YouTube as well.
Sure.
Wednesday morning, I think they kicked off, at least on social, with a photo of Wednesday morning. You remember what that was of?
Yeah, the photo just kind of set up what they really wanted to put in the comments. I don't know where this came from, but they put that Sam passed away.
They were talking about doing it when they started the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
so they put that in the comments,
right,
and Sam's like,
wanted that.
okay, the second comment that's going to be is I'm going to tell my folks. They talked about, how your folks worry about you. And Jim was on a trip and thought something was wrong. And his parents, when he got landed, his phone blew up because his parents were concerned about him. So it's not funny to joke about that kind of stuff. I remember, and I'll be brief on this, I know we're running out of time. My sister did a April Fool's joke to my mother. So when my sister was in college, I remember this like it was, and I was young. She called my mom in a disguised voice saying that, she was in the hospital, like a nurse. I'm this nurse, and you're in the hospital. She got in a bike accident, and my mom just dropped the phone and started crying. And my stupid sister was doing a prank. It's like pranks go wrong, man. It's those kind of stuff just doesn't fit. Don't do it to old people. Don't do it to your parents. Don't do it to when you're in your 50s. And we're done. We're good.
Did your sister say, if you think this is a joke, start laughing?
Start laughing, right? Just like Jimmy did with the bombs, right?
Prank call Jimmy.
Exactly.
That is amazing. Speaking of Jimmy, because I do regard him as one of the greatest stand-ups ever. I just because of how funny he always is on the radio the whole time, how quick he is, his material. I do regard him as that. I think you think he's up there too.
Absolutely.
So when he talks about comedians that have influenced him, I always love it. And Sam and Travis, I always get the Simpsons references in, which I love. That was my jam, at least when I was younger. And they're playing Rodney Dangerfield. There's a YouTube clip of all of Rodney Dangerfield's lines as Larry Burns, Mr. Burns' son on The Simpsons. And I think that was only, I want to say 2 times maybe he did that part on the show. I could be wrong. But it's great to see Jim kind of listen to that and him give his 2 cents, because I agree. Rodney is one of the greatest ever. Probably top 3, top 5, at least for me, just because he was so character driven. He was a regular guy. He was an aluminum salesman, I believe, when he hit it big on the Tonight Show. And that is his character. He had a character that was defined, and he just had jokes. So I love Jimmy kind of breaking that down.
And Jimmy's kind of similar. Jimmy is a hardworking guy and jokes, quickness, and he's himself. Jimmy has never been anybody but who Jimmy is. And it was funny that he was so enthralled with the Simpsons stuff with Rodney Dangerfield, because earlier in the week they're talking about the Simpsons in the power plant stuff. Yeah. And they're talking about energy and all that kind of stuff. And Sam and Travis were just dropping Simpson line after Simpson line about that. It goes right over Jim's head. So
every time.
I think that's Travis and Sam's favorite pastime, is to try to get Jimmy down either a Seinfeld or a Simpsons route where he believes everything that they're saying is real.
Love it. I was thinking about this because Anthony used to do it so much with Seinfeld. Jim would catch it sometimes, like, is that Seinfeld? But Sam and Travis would do Seinfeld, and now it's all Simpsons. I feel like past like a year at least, it's all Simpsons.
Absolutely.
Speaking of shows, the writer strike is over. So they talked about that a little bit. But something interesting they got into is there are writer directors who make actors stick to the dialogue, no matter what actor it is. And they talked about Tarantino and Sorin being kind of, I think they're probably the 2 predominant ones, and they mentioned them. And Sam mentioned, I think I heard this before, that Samuel L. Jackson kind of gets a pass where he can try some stuff with Tarantino just because of who he is. He's been in so many movies. But I love Tarantino. I was looking at Sorkin's work. I mean, some phenomenal stuff in there. For me, and Jim says this about writers, there's kind of always a lot of, look how brilliant I am. Look how brilliant I am. Look how brilliant I am. It doesn't always breathe organically for me with Sorkin. Some people like the dialogue heavy stuff he does. How about you? I do think you're a fan, right?
I'm 100% fan, and he's my top guy.
Yeah.
And yes, he does get a little sing-songy, and my wife always kind of makes fun of it. And there's even like a YouTube thing where all his shows have the same kind of thing. They say the same thing. They do it the same way. And I don't care. I eat it up with a spoon. I love his writing. I try to emulate his writing. I mean, you're more of a writer than I am, but when I'm writing for TV stuff, I will try to emulate his tone and his cadence and all that kind of stuff. Because to him, writing is music, right? And it has, spaces and breaths, just like the rests that have in musical, notation. So it's a music, it's a rhythm thing. So I try to emulate that. But yeah, Sorkin is the best. And they got into this because they're talking about the AI part of the WGA's contract, because they're worried about writing. But can you replace guys like Tarantino and Sorkin in writing? I don't know. We'll see.
No, he has great stuff. Actually, a good thing he did where that writing style really fit. I don't know if you saw the movie where Michael Fassbender played Steve Jobs. I thought it was really good. His writing worked really well for that. It was kind of like a play. Speaking of shows, I always love when Jim illustrates his disdain for the American Office, and they're talking about rebooting that. I feel like it's still gaining. The American Office is still like gaining followers on wherever it is, Netflix, where I feel like it's still new. And
it's on the I could not watch it. It's on the Cock. You should know that it's on the Peacock. It's on the Cock.
With Sammy, great.
Yes.
So we got to hear Jim's close-up, awkward close-up, which I love. That cracks me up every time. I don't remember, did you say you watched the American Office or no?
Yeah, I know you're not a big a fan. As
Jim's right. He's right.
I have two shows that I'll put on at night, and while I'm doing anything, it's The Office or Friends for me. I love both of them. I dissect them. I love them. So yeah, the American Office is great. No need to reboot it at all. Yeah, the whole reboot thing. Let's just get past that. Which is a reboot that has gone, oh my God, I'm so glad they did this. Has anybody ever said any of those things?
You can't even think of any, can you?
No. And during the COVID, they did a West Wing, which is my Sorkin favorite show. Yeah. They did an extra episode of that where they did it differently. They did it as a live theater play, and they shot it that way. That was interesting, but there's no need for reboots. It just will ruin, the memory of the great show that we love. So,
when you watch The Office and there is a close up and things are a little awkward, do you hear Jim's voice in your head?
I try not to, because just like we talked about with the movies, he's not going to ruin something I love so dearly. So I just try to ignore that.
God bless you.
Move on.
Speaking of shows, and this one hit home for me. It was funny that they were breaking down Bluey, which is a great show for kids, and I don't mind it because they play this. The art looks really like nice and calming, and they play this really calm music, and we kind of watch it as a family a lot in the morning. My kids love it. And they suggested it's made in Australia. It's on Disney, and Jim, I think, was the one hinting at there may be an adult who is associated with the show who watches it by themselves. Who would your guess be for that?
Well, I'm not sure if he's still associated with the show, but it's got to be E-Rock, right?
Type of association. Yeah, I think so. I mean,
I think even Sam went, "Hey," during that comment. So that's a code for E-Rock. Hey. Right. So yeah, and it's weird because obviously you still have young kids. My kids are grown up. If I'm watching Bluey, there's a problem there. For us, when the kids were younger, it's Blue's Clues. So a similar type of name. Blue's Clues was a great show. The Backyardigans was another thing we loved when we were kids. So yeah, you get roped into these shows that your kids love because sometimes they're awesome. Just like Pixar stuff, sometimes they're made for adults too, and it goes over the kids' head stuff. So yeah, I'd never seen the show. I look forward to kind of checking it out. I wanted to check it out before we talked and just ran out of time. So I'll take a look and see.
But I'm not all the time.
I'm not going to tell anybody. Dog. Yeah, I have to watch it with somebody. Like the lady that called in and says her dog loves it. Right?
Yeah.
I gotta.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I gotta watch it. I'm just gonna say I gotta watch it with somebody because I don't want to be thinking that I'm watching it as a 50-year-old by myself. I don't want that.
I guess there's a big to do about dogs watching it because dogs see things in blue and yellow, I believe, is what the caller said. I don't know if that's true, but and there's a lot of blue yellow color schemes in there. So maybe do some TV watching with the dog. There's no segue to DiBiasio making out with I didn't see this picture or video. It's a younger lady? Is that correct?
I saw the stills of it. I clicked on it and then it was just too hard to navigate to see the video, so I forget it. So yeah, well, first of all, he looks like he's dyed his hair jet black.
He's cool, man.
He's cool and he's younger and stuff. But they were what it looked like is they were going to town in a public place, which is just
3 hours. I think is what they said.
Well, of course, why not? If you're gonna make out with somebody, why do it for a minute in private? Do it for 3 hours in public. Yeah, a great sesh. But Yeah, and of course, that brought up the treasured, Mad Magazine song, "Making Out," which got stuck in my head like they said it was going to. Making out,
That's a great song.
everybody's making out, but me, whatever that is. But yeah, I remember. I don't know if you remember getting in those magazines, their plastic albums. They're square shaped, and you had to kind of cut them out of the magazine, and they're LPs. Now you probably don't remember this because you didn't have to play a lot of LPs, but you'd get this plastic flimsy kind of thing and you put it on your record player and it'd play, but it wouldn't play good because it was plastic. It wasn't like, the albums that you get. So I remember those like yesterday.
I do not. I'm glad you had that experience. That was a little before my time, but I will say the other song, like Making Out, from Jim and Sam Own a Universe, that gets crazy caught in your head. The other one for me is We Are the Dinosaurs.
Oh God, yes.
Remember that?
Yeah, and wasn't that associated with E-Rock too a little bit? Yeah.
E-Rock is a dinosaur.
Oh God, yeah.
Poor guy. Speaking of poor guys,
I got to go with one more, and I don't know. This one bothers me too because anytime I hear this song, I think of these guys. I saw the sign, and it opened up my sign, and that was Patty, yeah. Right?
What's that?
What was it, Patty? That used to be on the show that used to sing it.
Yes. Is that
she worked at a Starbucks
broadcast one, right?
Yeah, I think so. She worked at Starbucks and she'd come in, but I saw the sign.
Oh, no. Not Stalker Patty.
Was it Stalker Patty?
It was a girl who did that on a public access show, and they brought her in. It was probably like a viral clip, and they brought her in. I've gone back and listened to that multiple times on YouTube. Yeah. That is insane.
That one got stuck in my head, and every time I hear that song on the radio, I'm like, I think of those guys.
Speaking of music, and this one was so great for them to break down. It was such a folly and a mishap for a president. Biden calling LL Cool J cool, or J lady. What did he even?
He just screwed it all up, and then went on.
He called him something.
He went on to say, he's a very, he's a very boy. He's strong. Mike, I think they're right. You should never use boy when associating with the African American. It just doesn't. It's just bad. It's just but. They're talking about it all week. He's just old schooled in his thought process. And even Ian, who was on later, was talking about it being a Delaware thing. It was bad, but I don't know.
It was a rough one. And that's one of those ones where they pick up things that maybe you don't when you're listening, because Sam heard the noise he made after he said it. He was like an old man going, It was so, is that hard, man? We are so doomed either way after the elections again.
Yes.
The lesser of two evils constantly in this country. Let's get out of politics and get into, you mentioned Ian, and I mean, Sam's a busy guy. Jim's a busy guy. They're not always going to be in. And I'll start with you. I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, but when we've talked about sometimes when Sam's out, what kind of happens and how Jim's role changes and whoever's brought in. But when Jim is out, what do you think of as soon as you hear he's out or you hear someone else is in? Like, what do you think the show is going to be like that? What are there differences you notice?
Yeah, I mean, we all know the show isn't going to be as good, right? And I appreciate what Ian does. Ian's a good comic and very successful one, but he just doesn't have the thing that we want in the dichotomy in the relationship with Jim and Sam. And so Jim has such oddities in his life from when he was young to now, that those are the things that breed these conversations that are just so interesting and fun and funny that if you don't have that, it's not going to work. So yeah, I'm not happy when Jim is out. I'm not happy when Sam's out. We get it, but gosh, I know we're running out of time, but that's what bothers me.
Real quick, I mean, people love Jim, and I think there's people who listen to the show, especially as long as we have. There is a drop off too when Sam's not there. You want them together. You want the way that they have a rapport with Travis and Montone and Troy. You want that whole kind of unit in there. So it's tough to have someone else take that on. Ian does a podcast. I think radio is a different medium. I think you need people that know how to do the show. But something I did notice is, I think it was the second time he broke down the Biden introduction of LL Cool J. I'll make this quick. Is that you notice how funny Sam is now and how he can move stuff along and pick up little details. So I do notice Sam's strengths more when Jim's not in. And I do love Sam and Travis have, and you say the same thing about Troy. They have such a good connection that I love when they kind of do little asides and talk. But yeah, it's just you're not going to fill Jim Norton's shoes. I think people
Nope.
kind of get that.
And we talked about that too, and maybe we'll do an edit here to extend our time into another session here, and just. But we've talked about it. The thing is with when Jim leaves, which it sounds like he's probably going to do at the end of this contract, we said who's going to replace, who's going to be. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that that'll be the end of this pairing of all these guys together. I think they'll go on to do different things separately and then get together every once in a while. But yeah, I don't think it's happening because like you said, you can't replace, you can't make that magic. Like you talked about before, we also can't go back and reboot anything, right?
Right.
It's not going to work.
Reboot it. I mean,
we had luck with where we are with Jim and Sam coming from the Opie and Anthony days. We went through some crap and we got there, and that happened. But yeah, we can't reboot it.
Yeah, I don't see any of those guys doing a show at XM after. I think they'll do a podcast or something. Sam's got kind of his umpire going. So speaking of other projects,
go ahead.
While we're here, let's jump to what else other people are doing before we get the best guests and line of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. So in other news, we found out that Sam and Nicole are going to launch a podcast together. I think it's a once a week kind of thing on a Thursday. It's called The Satisfying. And that should be really kind of cool to tune into that. It's like adding the Jim and Matteo, podcast when they start, ruining movies for us. Those two I'll add and I'll listen and watch every time. And then we heard about Jimmy's airplane poetry. I know he posted, I think, to Instagram some nice, beautiful shots out the plane and wrote a nice note in some poetry and some prose, if you will, and signed that. And then some sad news. We heard that Anthony Cumia was in the hospital with some heart issues. So hoping that he's okay. Such an important person in this genre of the show. So yeah, hoping he's okay and everything goes well there.
Absolutely. Just a blockage with Anthony. Hopefully nothing serious. Hope it gets better. And getting to best guests now. And we talked at the top of the show that you didn't think it was a great week. I think there were great parts of every episode. Hard to measure up to the last 2 weeks, I think, regardless. But I think this is where you maybe run into trouble because you have a lot of guests, just very guest heavy. And Matteo Lane, phenomenal, always. Voss, I love Voss. Sam Morrell, was great to have him back. And then I think we get in trouble is you have comedians. Comedians are great on the show, just like they were great on O&A, but ones that the audience isn't as familiar with. Sam J, first appearance. Joe Bartnick, maybe on one other time. Neil Rubenstein, I don't know if he's been on before. So I think, half your guests there in a guest heavy week are not Jim and Sam regulars. It makes it a little tricky to get dialed in, I think.
Yeah, and we always talk about it, and of course, my take is I like just the guys talking and riffing. So, Matteo was great. I guess he's married now. He brought up how he hates kids that act like adults, which I do as well. The pretentious kids you see in these stupid interviews, and it just drives me nuts. And then he's just so talented. We talked about it earlier, his drawing, his singing. So he's a great guest. And then Rich was, I don't know if you want to consider Rich Voss a guest, but he was, co-hosting for a little while. And he's the same old Rich, talking about parking in parking garages and leaving the windows cracked because, or not cracked because he doesn't want to get rats. And then he keeps crackers in there or nuts or something for the rats. It's just weird. It's all weird. He's a weird man. Sam Morrell shared a story that I thought was really funny about Rich and he on a cruise, one of those, comedic cruise where a lot of people are on there. And I guess, I'm not a huge fan of Rich's, but this was pretty funny. I thought these women, these four ladies walk by and they go to Sam, you were the best one, right? And Rich goes, well, you're a lot fatter than your friends. So it's like, you never want to hear in front of your group that you're better than the rest. That was just a crappy things to say. So that was kind of fun. Sam J, she's very interesting, but that interview for me didn't hold my attention. He just drug on it. They were pulling teeth.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point with that. You could tell they were working very hard because Sam and Jim are so good at doing this. Sam, when you hear a lot of questions, I can tell you from interviewing a lot of people, when you hear a lot of questions, it's either not going well or the subject's responses are too short and lack information. Sam in particular and Jim too, they were working really hard on that one.
Yeah, so it just was, I could tell, and it just didn't hold my interest.
Yeah.
And then Jay Bartnick, he had some great stories about working with Burr and Club Soda Kenny, and that was great. And then he had even a deeper story about a club owner or a venue owner that was kind of cheating him out of a deal, and really got into the behind the scenes about how that worked and stuff. And that was really kind of interesting, and how he's trying to keep his cool. It's like, I'll just do my sets in stinking New York City and not go up to where this club owner is. I'm just going to keep my cool. I'll kill him if I do. And then Neil Rubenstein was really interesting, man. Like you said, I don't think he's been on there, but he has a checkered past, man. Some possible crime life that he used to be in, and just really interesting. But Ian was there, and Ian was playing a different kind of role that Jimmy wouldn't have been. If Jim was there and we're talking about this stuff, this would have been a top 10 interview. I truly believe it. It was so interesting. But Ian kind of ruined it a little bit for me. And, it was funny. I don't know if you caught this, but they were talking about, Ian coming back. You're like, well, next time you're in, and Travis would go, well, but that also sounded like a mic squeak where you go, so it's like, was that the mic squeak again?
But they let him know about his mixed feedback. Every time Ian comes in, they tell him there's mixed feedback when he's co-hosting.
And he hit it head on. That's what I liked about Ian. It's like, yeah, I know, I come on a little strong. They even kind of did a callback to it later. It's like, sometimes guys come in a little strong when they want to do well, and so So I like Ian. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I don't know, man. It wasn't
a different show.
It's a different show, and it wasn't something I was into. So,
who's your best guest?
My best guest, it's going to be interesting. I really kind of liked Joe Bartnick for me, because I'm going a little out of the realm of normal guests, because I like to hear how working with Burr went. I love hearing about Club Soda Kenny, and then just he was honest with some of the club owner stuff. So yeah, I think he was good. How about you?
I'm going to go with Matteo. I think Matteo, Rich, and Sam were super strong for me. It was just so good to have him back. And like I said, he's just so talented. He got married, so you're happy for him there. And he has a great rapport with those guys. So I was thrilled to get him back in. Sam Morril was up there just for playing and discussing the Al Franken interview. He almost got it for me, but it was Matteo for best guest.
On second guess, I probably would go Matteo, because I do love him. I even, I profess my love like Sam almost did earlier in this podcast. Yeah. So yeah, I do love him, but he's just, I just know him. For me, Joe was familiar, and I liked it. Yep, exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. Fair enough. And moving along to line of the week. This is whatever you want to say about a particular week of the show. There's always it's hard to do a line of the week. There's always so many great lines. I'll let you do. I have one specifically. I'll let you say if you have some finalists or one in particular.
I just have one, and I found this week to be a little line of the week light. I don't know if you did. For me, it was just, there's a couple that I liked and a couple that I shared with you that I really don't think we can share in this realm. But so my line of the week is still a little dark, but I think it was really funny. They were talking about Sam's phimosis. Is that how you pronounce it? His issue. And our young Cooper doesn't know anything about it, so they're kind of explaining what that is.
Oh, so great.
It was really funny. And then Troy asked Sam if he had to show his penis to his mom, and Jim said he didn't have to, which is great.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't have to, he chose to. No.
That's probably, that might have been the break of the week. Oh my God, it's so hilarious. Anytime.
How about you?
For me, it was Sam, and I thought he was like a surgeon with this. When we're talking about Airplane Jimmy and him being afraid to fly to Toronto, Sam's like, it's Toronto. And then he goes, my line of the week is Sam going, "You've flown to Afghanistan."
He's been in dangerous places.
Yeah, for sure. And this shows you the mania of Jimmy, and why he's so great is because it's so illogical. He's been all over the world. Very long flights, going to, where guys are preparing for war, and he's scared of flying to Toronto. So that, to me, cuts right to why Jim appears to be crazy at times, which is why he's also amazing.
It's just a callback to what we were talking about. As you get older, you start worrying about stuff more. So
that's true too.
He was a young man when he was going to Afghanistan, I'm going to say, at least younger. So maybe that's where that came from. But what a great line, because it sounds exactly all of us. I think Sam and Travis sometimes are all of us when it comes to Jimmy. Like, dude, you're Jim Norton,
And you usually hear Travis laugh after a crazy comment from Jimmy. So.
Absolutely.
And that's going to do it for our show. And thank you all so much for listening. And Chris, thank you all, all you Chris's there, for everything you do for this show. It's always greatly appreciated, man.
This Chris, all the Chris's that are out there, Chris Klein even for giving us some great humor.
Yeah, dog.
For sure, dog. But yeah, it was, it's, may not have been our best week that we loved of Sam and Jim's show, but it's a great time anytime we get together in the town square.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Jim and Sam Town Square. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, not dog bell, so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're just listening to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it.